to my sewing room. We have such an exciting show for you today. We're going to have all kinds of fun with beautiful machine embroidery, the built-in easy kind, of course, and really wonderful decorative stitches. Let me just share a few projects with you. This beautiful wall hanging has applique. It also has a little bit of quilting, a little bit of heirloom, and look at these adorable sheep. These are built-in machine embroidery stitches. And then, of course, we have some flowers, too. So you see, that's where sewing is today. People are having fun sewing. This beautiful project looks like you spent hours making it by hand because the center part here is trapunto. Well, I have a little secret for you. This was all done on the sewing machine with built-in embroidery stitches. Thinking about a present for your mother, and what a nice thing to think about. This is cross-stitch done on the sewing machine. Very easy and really so much fun. A wonderful, very fashionable ladies jacket. And guess what these cute little things are? These are built-in stitches on the sewing machine and lots of decorative stitches to hold them down. Another very fashionable vest, and you know we've done a lot of vests on this series with magnificent built-in stitches on the sewing machine. And we have to dress our cute little dolls. That's one of my favorite things to do. And here is a precious little doll's dress with some beautiful wing needle entredot and other wing needle stitches. And for those of you that really love to have fun and play, but you don't really have a whole lot of time to construct, how about a great denim jacket with this beautiful heirloom stitching over here? This is the Fil Tiré, and we're going to show you how to do that today. I have as my guest Mary Carollo, who is educational consultant for the New Home Genome Sewing Machine Company of America. She has so many exciting ideas, and I'll tell you what, we're going to go over to the technique boards and let my friend Mary share some of these ideas with you.
I'm so glad to be here with you today, and I have a number of techniques that I'd like to share. We're going to go over and look at our board and show you a sample of some of the things that we're going to show you. We're going to combine professional style embroidery along with decorative stitches and heirloom stitches. Now those are built in on the machine. As you can see with my sample, I've started out with an embroidery design that's satin stitched. Well, this is a card that is designed for cut work, but I've done something a little bit different. I've made it a reverse applique. But the special part is that I've created my own fabric for the reverse applique. And if you go up here at the top of the board, you're going to see that I've done some wing needle work that makes it look like lace, but I created it myself. Now when I work with embroidery designs, sometimes I want to experiment a little bit. The hardest part, I think, of creating a design is deciding what fabric or what stitches, fabric also, that you're going to use. So when I play with my stitches, as you can see on the board, I write down my settings because of course my memory is real good but awful short. Now once I've determined the kind of fabric I'm going to use, then I can go ahead and use the memory card to make my cut work design. And it's a simple process of an outline stitch, cutting away, putting the fabric behind it for the reverse applique effect, and then stitching it over. Now this of course is done on the professional style embroidery in an embroidery hoop. A little bit later on, I'll show you exactly how I get it in the right place. Besides deciding where it's going to go, the cloth setter that we've got makes it very, very easy to make it exactly the right place for you. Then I'm going to show you some of the heirloom stitches that are built into the machine. And those today are going to include corded entredot, which gives you a nice raised effect, and I've used it in a framing effect. Also, we're going to show you faggoting. Now that's a real nice technique where you use finished edges of fabric and join them together for more open work. And then we're going to join them all together for a traditional heirloom look. Now I'd like to join Martha over at the sewing machine.
Oh, Mary, we are so glad that you're here with us today.
It's such a pleasure.
And I'm excited
well,
about
I'm
those
so
stitches
excited too. I'm going to start out showing you making your own fabric. You know, sometimes you're looking for just the right look or the right color, which sometimes is a problem. Whites are all right, but then you go into those soft shades and you can't find anything. So I'm going to show you how to do it yourself.
I'm excited.
And now I've started out with a wing needle, all right? And I'm using an organdy. and you can see that it creates a hole, okay? So it looks kind of lacy, kind of a Fil Tiré look.
That's right.
All
That's
right.
That's what I was thinking. It
Yeah.
looks like Fil Tiré by hand.
And again, it's one of those things that's real simple to do. Now I'm going to choose one of my stitches that is kind of an open work stitch because I want to see those holes very nicely. So we're just going to go over here and choose something that's open. Now I've put blue thread in my machine, Martha, so that the viewers can see the stitches that's being done. And the hardest part, of course, is just starting out and sewing a straight line. And we're just going to sew along here, and maybe the camera's going to catch the fact that I've got all these little holes in my fabric. And the organdy, of course, look at how nice that looks.
Oh, it's beautiful.
All right, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip my fabric, and I'm going to use the edge of the presser foot and put it right up against the edge with no spaces, and put it next to the row that I've just sewn, and continue to sew. This is kind of sewing therapy, Martha. You know, when your brain is kind of overfried, or maybe the kids aren't home, went out with the car, you know, kind of take your worries off of everything else and just kind of keep filling in.
What we love to say, it's cheaper than a psychiatrist.
It definitely is, but you see how nice that open work
really
looks?
Beautiful.
And even in the shades of blue, it's really attractive too. So you can be very creative with this stitch.
Absolutely gorgeous.
Now the next thing I'd like to show you is faggoting. Now the faggoting is when we take the two pieces of fabric and we butt them up against each other, okay? And you get that nice open work effect in the center. Now the hardest part about doing this, of course, is keeping those fabrics in the right place. So that
I would think so. Yeah.
Well, I've got an answer for you. We have a cloth guide, and the cloth guide goes onto the carriage of the machine.
Oh my goodness.
Now normally you would use this as a seam guide to keep your fabric straight, but if I turn the setting to just in the center where the needle is, you know what's going to happen is that I'm going to be able to put one piece of fabric on one side and the other piece of fabric on the other. Whoops, let's see, make sure we get it underneath here. And I don't have to worry about sewing straight because the machine's going to keep it that way.
Oh, Mary, that's wonderful.
Isn't that neat? Now,
yeah, it really is.
Now I'm going to use one of the hem stitches, and I'm going to keep using the wing needle, and I think that'll work on here. And we're just going to sew along, and
Keeps it separated.
yes, it does.
Oh,
All
that's
right.
fascinating.
Isn't that nice? And then you can see that with the little bar in the center here, I don't have to worry about that separation about using any other tool because it's right on the machine. And you see just how perfect that is for keeping it all nice and open. Isn't that a nice effect?
Absolutely beautiful. And it really does look like faggoting.
Oh, yes.
Like the hand faggoting
Yes,
once again.
yes. Again, so many nice stitches are on the machine to allow you to do that.
And I love that little bar that separates it too.
Well, again, I need any tool that helps me sew straight because that's not one of my stronger suits. Now, to finish a faggoting look, what you could do is use another hem stitch or the same one right underneath and catch just the edge of the hem underneath here.
Oh, beautiful.
And that way you won't have to worry about any other type of finish for it, okay? But before I do that, I would like to show you a corded entredot. Now, this is something that I love the effect of entredot, but the cord really adds another height to the stitch, and it makes such a definition. Now, we would do that simply by taking maybe a pearl cotton or something heavy to put it onto one of the entredot stitches. And again, how do we keep all of that in place? That's the hard part.
For me, it is usually.
Yes, all right. So what we've got here is a cording foot. This foot is designed with ridges that they're going to keep my cord in place. Now, Martha, what I'm using is like a pearl cotton or a crochet cotton, and I'm simply sliding it into the grooves. And now the grooves are on the top and also on the bottom, kind of like a railroad track to keep everything in line. Now I'm simply going to start to sew, and what's going to happen, well, let me pull that, and I put it in the wrong spot. Let's put it into the outside rung here so that it's going to catch all of my stitching. And then we're going to start to sew one of the heirloom hem stitches. And it's kind of open in the center, but then it's got like a satin stitch on the end, so it's going to keep everything in place. Now once I start to sew, Martha, I don't have to watch the cords because they're going to stay right in those little tracks. And look at that beautiful cording.
Absolutely.
Now this is pretty in a contrasting thread also.
And would you show us one more time over there? That is just so beautiful. That wing needle entredot that is corded.
Yes.
Well, Mary, that is just fascinating. Next, Mary will have for us a wonderful home decorating project. Mary has the most beautiful dresser scarf for you using that gorgeous embroidery filled with Fil Tiré. Mary, tell us about it.
Well, what we've done is combine all of the designs that I've just showed you, and here is the Fil Tiré, all open work, and you see how lovely it looks underneath what would normally be cut work. Then I used the corded entredeaux to frame out the design and kept my wing needle and used a seed stitch. And of course, here's my faggoting out on the end. So it's a little combination, almost a sampler for the dresser scarf. But you know, Martha, I'd like to tell you a little bit about getting the proper place for those professional embroidery designs. That seems to be one of the problems that people just really have a difficult time with. We are using our cut work design, and the nice part about the cut work is it comes with a set of templates. Now the templates have designs, all of the designs are in here, and they're all marked, and I'd like to show you how we use those. What I would do is I would take my template. First of all, I would find a center point on my fabric. Then I would take my template and lay it down where I want the design to go. And because it's a picture, you can see exactly what it is. Now on this particular design, this is going to be in the center, and it's a round design, so that would be my centering mark. So for the other design, when I've got shapes like I have here, what I would do is either sew the design first or mark all of them at one time. Here's my little shell shape, and you can see where I've got crosshair lines on here. What I do with my fabric marking pencil is just mark the dots like this, and of course this is going to be on my center line. So there I have 4 spots, and then what I would do is take a ruler and simply join them together. And I'll just use the straight edge on here. So I've got like a little X. Now, The one thing that's most important is my little arrows. You see where my arrow is?
I do.
Now the arrow is for me because I need to know which way is up. That's always very important. So now my fabric is all marked, and what I'm going to do is bring over my cloth setter and the hoop that I'm going to use. Now, you'll notice on the cloth setter that I have an arrow, and I also have an X. And you can see how simple this is, Martha.
How
all I have to do is line my X up with the X on my fabric, and you know what? I've got perfect placement. It really is as simple as that. And the designs that you can put them as many as you want, and again, because you've got the visual with the template, it makes it, there's no question about where it's going to go. And sometimes you can just I use overhead transparency paper, and I'll draw out my design. You know, sometimes you just want to see all of it together, and that's a good way to plan everything.
Oh goodness, well that's an exciting, isn't that a fun little gizmo?
It
really makes
certainly makes
EASY.
That's right.
And that's one of our favorites.
I've noticed that's one of your favorite words. Mine too.
Oh Mary, thank you so much. And next we have a magnificent doll dress for you. I just wonder if you think that this doll and I look a little bit alike. Her name is Martha, and my name is Martha. She has red hair. I have red hair. She has green eyes. I have green eyes, and we both have glasses. So I thought you might think we looked a little bit alike. This dress is really fun. It's an antique looking dress, although it really isn't antique. What I think is especially cute is this really neat little handkerchief ruffle that goes over the sleeves. I really think that's neat, and I'll show you how to make it in a minute. This is a really, really lovely piece that comes down the front with entredeaux on either side, and then a really pretty little lace ruffle on the skirt that has 3 pieces of lace zigzagged together. Okay, how do we do all these wonderful things? First of all, if you want to use a handkerchief for the little sleeve, and you know Mary showed you a few minutes ago that wonderful Fil Tiré. Well, this handkerchief really is a Chinese handkerchief, but can you see you might do your own decorative work, because that looks very much like the Fil Tiré that Mary was doing a few minutes ago. To make this little ruffle, you simply trace off a piece of the handkerchief, and then we're going to come in here and cut it, and that makes the little ruffle that goes over the sleeve, which looks so elegant. But oh, was that easy to do. Now, if you don't have one of those handkerchiefs, you might just make your own handkerchief, draw it off in the middle, come in here and once again slice on that particular handkerchief. The skirt is so elegant on the doll dresses on these series, and they're not hard to do. This, once again, is your circular skirt, which is very beautiful and real full, which is what I like about it so much. Now, the first piece that's going to go onto the skirt is a piece that has 3 pieces of lace, an entredot on either side. Okay, it will go off after you've traced off the piece. You'll cut the skirt in two and attach one of these everywhere you have a skirt segment like that. And then you're going to attach entredot to the bottom of the dress, and 3 pieces of lace are butted together. Now, how do you butt laces together? Well, it's very, very easy. You simply zigzag. Let's come on over here and let me just show you. And Mary showed me this wonderful seam separator, and it works perfectly for laces. I put my laces out in front. It keeps them guided perfectly. I can really go 100 miles an hour because the laces are going to go perfectly, and I don't even have to watch them. So I am just real excited about this because my laces have gone together completely perfectly, and I didn't even have to watch where they were going. I can also put my entredot on like that after I trim away the seam allowance, and then I will butt them up to the laces also. Next, I have an absolutely beautiful quilt technique to share with you. Noah's Ark is such a great theme for decorating a nursery or a child's room. I love this quilt, our Noah's Ark quilt with its letters around it, and the little rainbow and the giraffes and the monkeys and all the cute little animals. When you come down here, I think you will see some silk ribbon flowers, which are really beautiful. And I bet some of you thought that those silk ribbon flowers were done by hand. However, those silk ribbon flowers are done by machine. My dear friend and machine artist Louise Baird made this quilt, and she has the neatest tricks for doing silk ribbon embroidery by machine, and I've asked her to come and share those with you. Louise, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Martha. It's a pleasure to be here. With the silk ribbon by machine, you need to first remember to take the foot off of your sewing machine. And some feet have the foot as well as the ankle that you need to remove. So depending on the foot, or rather the machine that you have, you may need to take the foot and the ankle off of your machine. Also, when I use silk ribbon by machine, I use invisible thread so that you can't see the thread, rather just the silk ribbon. Here I've done everything in a contrasting thread so that you can see it. A few of the different stitches that I do is a stem stitch. You begin by pulling up your bobbin thread and stitching this over the center of your ribbon, then crossing the ribbon and stitching down. And you continue to cross and stitch until you have a chain stitch or a stem stitch. The tighter you pull your ribbons, the narrower the stem will be. Okay, another type of stitch is the lazy daisy stitch. And again, I would pull up my bobbin thread, and on this one I would anchor my yarn, or ribbon rather, and then trim close, bring the ribbon around, tack it at the top, then bring it back to the bottom and tack it at the bottom. And this is one that's partially completed. And then the next one is a loop flower. With the loop flower, again, after tying on the thread, you would then anchor your ribbon at one end and trim it close, and then make little loops. You would go around in a circle to make the loops as big as you want them to be, and make the flower as big as you want it to be by adding the loops. And so here I'll show you how to do the loop flower on the sewing machine. You can see I've taken the ankle and the foot off of the machine, but always remember to lower your feed dogs because it engages the tension. And I've already pulled up and tied on, but now I'm going to just stitch over the ribbon to tack it down. And I'll put my needle down button and then trim close. Now with the little skewer that Martha just loves, and it's always very helpful, I make a little loop of yarn and stitch over it. Now one thing that I forgot to mention was the fact that I did place it in a hoop instead of having it free. The hoop holds the fabric tight so that you can move it easily. Okay, I made another loop of yarn or ribbon, stitch over it, turn my hoop a little, and again. You would just do this until you have as many loops as you want to make your flower. You can add several different rows instead of just one row. You can see how fluffy this gets to be. Okay, and that's all there is to it, Martha. You would tie it off by stitching through the ribbon a lot of times and then clipping close.
That is absolutely fascinating how you could have done that so quickly. And next we have a really fun craft for you. This is a really unusual greeting card which you might like to make for a very special friend or relative. Actually, it's sewing on a greeting card. This is a little angel with her little lace scallop on the skirt, her little lace scallop around her collar, gold wings, and just plain sewing machine stitching up here for her little halo effect. This is really very easy to do. It takes a little time, but it's very easy to do. Okay, once you cut out her dress and her wings and her face, you might want to take some glue stick and just put it on the back of her dress. Kind of be sure it gets down there where it will hang on, but then you're going to stitch around it so it doesn't have to be everywhere. All right, glue her dress down. Do the same thing with her face, which comes right, of course, at her neckline, and then her little wings and her halo. Glue all of that down. Then come in and put the little lace around the bottom of her skirt. After it's all glued down, then you can take this over to the sewing machine and simply zigzag around it for a very special, oh, by the way, you probably need to go in and put in eyes and nose and mouth if you want to, but you don't have to. But you zigzag all the way around it and send that through the mail to a very special friend. Now won't you come along to my attic with me? I love this dress. I called it Ribbon Puffs and Points dress for several reasons. It is just absolutely beautiful, and I have to believe that maybe it was used for a wedding dress. These sleeves, let's just start with the sleeves, are so pretty. First of all, they have a a batiste ruffle that goes right above the sleeve. You know, it attaches right in the arm's eye. Now then, look at this wonderful sleeve. It has puffing on both sides. Well, it's kind of a puffing sleeve. The puffing goes all the way down the sleeve, and the puffing is even more tightly gathered when it gets down to about the elbow and then on down to the cuff. And then there is a beautiful point on the bottom of that sleeve. You see, I think this just had to be a bride's dress. Now back up to this sleeve. There's another detail you're going to love also. It seems to be just a double ruffle folded over, and it comes down into a V. Let me try to open it up here for you. It comes down into a V, into a little tiny V, and there's a little bit of tiny lace edging on either side. Once again, that is gathered to make the prettiest sleeve. Now the silk ribbon is stitched down in sets of 3. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. It is also found on the back of the blouse. The skirt is equally as beautiful as the blouse. It has tucks on either side, and once again, see the ribbon? 1, 2, 3. The silk ribbon is stitched down. Now this is a beautiful, really full Swiss batiste. It's almost a cross between Swiss batiste and organdy skirt. I think I'm going to pull this skirt up here so you can really get the full effect of these unbelievably beautiful points on the skirt. Once again, it goes down into a point. And if each one, see, it goes up and down all the way around the skirt. And on each one of these points, there are 3 ruffles. A little tiny one, a medium-sized one, and a bigger one, edged with a little tiny narrow French edging. And underneath this particular layer of skirt is another layer of skirt with simply another ruffle. I thank you so much for joining me in my sewing room today. I hope you've had as much fun as I have, and I'll look forward to seeing you next time.